Let's talk about computer audio interfaces. This is that essential hardware that allows you to connect microphones or musical instruments to your computer and to give a conduit so your computer can play back audio to your powered studio monitors or audio system. There's a lot of devices in the market, and I've used a bunch of them. Today I want to talk about 3 of them that span a pretty wide range in price, from budget to high-end consumer, whether or not it's really necessary to spend extra money. So let's talk about 3 units. The first one is the FineFine SC1. This is a budget interface that comes in at $50 to $60. We'll compare that to the Focusrite Scarlett series. This is a Scarlett 4i4. It's a little over $200. And I would say this is a nice mid-level consumer product. And then, if you want to spend a little more, for about $330 or thereabouts, you can get an Audient ID14. And I'll give you my thoughts, my opinions, and what my experience has been with each of them. So let's start off with the FineFine SC1. This is a budget interface, and I think it delivers a lot of value for the money. For features, it has a single input for an XLR microphone, which can take an XLR mic or a 1/4 inch input. There's also an instrument input, which is 1/4 inch. And so you got inputs 1 and 2. And those are controlled gain-wise by these 2 knobs on the top. The knobs at the top have a LED ring around them that illuminates in green when it senses audio and red when it senses overload. So that's kind of nice. The final knob here is the output level. And you have phantom power available, so this works with condenser microphones. On the back side, we have 2 outputs, left and right output, and a connection for USB to the computer. And so it's a pretty straightforward, simple plastic box, and it works well. It sounds good, but it doesn't perform as well as the more expensive units. And I can clearly see that when I put it on the analyzer and measure it. But when I listen to it, I think it sounds just fine. And so I think it delivers a lot of value. Now, there are some downsides with this box, and you would expect some compromises at this price point. And some of those compromises are that the microphone preamp in here, it may not be a world-class preamp, but more importantly, it doesn't have tremendous amounts of gain. It works well with almost all of my microphones, but if you have a low output dynamic microphone, like a Shure SM7, for example, you may find yourself wishing you had a little bit more mic gain than this preamp offers. These outputs are unbalanced outputs. They just have a signal and a ground. And if you're going into a consumer audio system, that's going to be an unbalanced input, and so no problem at all. But if you're using powered studio monitors or other professional equipment that has balanced inputs, it would be nice to drive that with a balanced output signal. But this is an unbalanced output signal, so that's one thing to consider. The other issue with this is that it is 16-bit at 48 kilohertz sample rate. It can also do 44.1, and those are the standard audio sample rates that we find with almost all production. But sometimes you want to be able to record with 24-bit audio so you have even lower noise floor and get really high-quality, super pristine recordings. But if you want to do really high-quality recording, this might not be the device for you. This device does not require any software to be installed on the PC or your Mac. It's a class-compliant device, meaning that it's designed to work directly with Windows or Mac OS, or even your smartphone if it's compatible. So as soon as you plug this device into your machine, it should be seen and ready to use. And that's a real plus because it operates very reliably. It's super easy, just plug and play and you're good to go, no fuss. And it's worked really well for me. I haven't had any sort of dropouts or glitches or problems with this. It's just plug and play. I just plug it in and it's immediately seen by Windows and it just works. And so that's a plus. I find that the FineFine SC1 works just great. But it's not the device that I normally choose. And the biggest reason why I don't use this device is the aesthetics. It's just a little plastic box. It doesn't look bad, you know, it's nicely executed, but it's very lightweight and it just doesn't look as cool on my desk as the more expensive units. And so the limiting factor for this for me is largely the aesthetics, but I also know that the audio quality isn't quite at the same level as the more expensive units, and it doesn't offer quite as much microphone gain, which isn't a big issue for me. I don't do a lot of work with the microphones on these units. I mostly use them as a playback device in my applications. At $50 or $60, if you're just looking for a simple interface for doing casual production work, it's hard to beat. So where do I see this fitting in? Maybe if you're doing something like training videos for a company or producing content that is going to be casually consumed, like YouTube videos or internal videos used within a company, I think it's just perfectly acceptable. Now, if I was doing music production and planning on actually publishing that, I would probably want a device that offers 24-bit recording and maybe a more fancy, nicer preamp. But as a budget device, I think it's a great choice. Now, a device that I don't have here for you today, but I hear really good reviews of, that is also another budget level device, is the Behringer UMC202HD interfaces. But if you want to step up, spend a little bit more money, let's see what you get. This is the Focusrite Scarlett series. And of course, the Scarlett series comes with many different models. And from what I see, the performance of all of the different Scarlett units is pretty similar-ish. The big difference is how many inputs and outputs that are offered. This has been a great device. I've used it a lot over the years, and it's served me well. The Scarlett 4i4 offers 2 microphone inputs, which can also be switched over to 2 line inputs. And similar to the SC1, but implemented even nicer, is around the gain controls they have LED lighting that changes color as the levels go up. And you can adjust what colors are indicated, but I have it so that they're green when it sends the signal, orange when the signal's getting pretty strong, and red when there's an overload. So you can tell at a glance what your input signals are, and that's pretty nice. Again, I find the mic preamp in this is good. It doesn't offer tremendous gain. With some low output dynamic microphones, I find myself with the gain control set pretty high, but I've never felt like I couldn't get the job done. On the back panel of the Focusrite Scarlett, we have more connectors. On this one, on this model, we have 4 outputs, or 2 pairs of stereo outputs. Outputs 1, 2, 3, and 4. And like I mentioned, they're all balanced. So that's nice if you want to connect with pro sound equipment. There are 2 line level inputs on the back panel. And then there's also a pair of connectors for MIDI, musical instrument digital interface. And so that can send control signals or receive control signals that indicate things like key presses on a keyboard or signals that could control musical instrument equipment. This is the only audio interface in the 3 of them that we're going to look at today that include a MIDI interface. And of course, we also have a USB connection that goes to your computer. Just like the lower priced unit, we have phantom power available for condenser microphones. And the Scarlett unit works nice. This unit can support higher sample rates and bit depth than the SC1. This can record in 24-bit, and it can go up to really high sample rates like 192K. And so if you want to do really high quality recordings, this is a better choice. Now, one of the pluses and the minuses of the Scarlett series is that this requires the installation of driver software. And so with their driver software, you get a nice control panel application. That's cool. And you also get ASIO drivers, which are higher performance audio drivers that allow for connections to the box with lower latency. Digital processing takes just a little bit of time to convert the audio signal coming in to a digital signal, send it to the computer, have the computer digest it, and send it back to you for monitoring. And so that can take several milliseconds in order to do all of that processing. The ASIO drivers are generally higher performance than the native Windows drivers, and so you get lower latency than you would with the standard Windows drivers. So that's cool. I have had some glitches with the Focusrite box. And when I say that, I don't know if I can say that the glitches are with the Focusrite box or with my computer. When you're dealing with computers, there's so much stuff happening and interacting that this could just simply be my personal computer setup and all of the software that's running on it. And so I have a hard time assigning blame directly to the Focusrite box. But I have had a few instances on very rare occasion, not frequently, but once in a while, I will not have audio coming through the box or even have the box do some motorboating oscillation type stuff where I'm hearing this thump, 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 thump sound coming through the audio system. And I rectify it simply by unplugging the USB connection from the box for a moment, plug it back in, everything syncs back up, and we're back in business. So that's been a very minor complaint that I have with this unit. And again, this is the 3rd generation Scarlett. If you get the 4th generation, well, that's a whole nother ball game. It might be a different situation, might be better. I can tell you that the measured performance of this box is, I'd say, pretty spectacular. It's just about ruler flat with almost no distortion at all, so it's got really pristine audio quality. There is a button on here called Air, which adds a high-frequency boost to your microphones, and that's just a cosmetic effect, an EQ adjustment that Focusrite seems to think sounds good. That's totally optional. I'm not particularly impressed. I can make those sorts of adjustments in my post-production, but Focusrite thinks it's a selling point. But without the Air function enabled, the measured specs on this box that I've measured with my analyzer are very impressive. So I don't think that it holds back audio quality. It's a great device. And I think it looks nice on the desk. That's one of the big reasons why I use this over the SC1 is just simply, I think it looks cool. I think it looks nice. It's all metal box. And this sells for a little over $200. I think it's about $225. The better comparison with the SC1 would be the Focusrite Scarlett Solo, which is a single microphone input. Sells for a little less money. Now let's take a look at the Audient ID14. This is a well-regarded high-end consumer audio interface. Like the Focusrite, this one has 2 microphone inputs, 1 and 2, and they also support phantom power, of course, for condenser microphones, which is controlled by switches on the front panel. And there are no indicator lights that tell you that phantom power is enabled, but you can tell by just looking at the switch position. One thing I like about this interface is that it has an actual set of bar graph meters on it. And these meters show the playback level of audio from the computer into the interface. One of the things that I find to be a real limitation is that there isn't an easy way to switch these meters over to look at the audio signal coming in on the microphones. In order to see your microphone input level, you have to look at the digital audio recording software that you're using and its meters. There's a big knob here, which is a multifunction control, and it's a soft control, so it can turn all the way around. There's no hard stops on this control. And that's primarily used for controlling the output level to either your main outputs or your headphones. And you select which one you want to control. So you just push this button to control your main output level, and that's what the knob then does. And if you want to adjust headphone level, you push the headphone button, and then this control adjusts headphone level. And since it's a soft control and you can turn it all the way around, there isn't an indication just by looking at the knob as to what the level is set to. But while you adjust this control, the bar graph meters will show where the control position is. And then, of course, a second later, it reverts back to showing the audio output level from the computer. So that actually works pretty nicely. The control also can be pressed downward, and there's a switch function which can mute your audio output. So if you want to quickly mute the speakers, you can just tap that control and it will silence the output. There's a button in the middle here, which is a multifunction button which you can assign its action to. And you can assign it to do a number of different things, such as a dim function. So when you press that button, it reduces the output level by a certain amount. So you could have it so when you tap that button, it reduces the output level to, say, half as loud. What I use the button for is to sum the outputs to a mono signal. And I really like that. I find that convenient because sometimes I'm listening to YouTube videos, and in their production, they only put audio to one channel, or the panning is really severe. Like there's a panel of two people talking, and one person's in one speaker and the other person's in the other speaker, and I find that to be a little extreme. And so in those cases, I can just press the mono switch, and it sums everything to a mono feed, and that's nice. Or if I'm doing a production, it's nice to be able to do a quick check to make sure that it still renders nicely in mono. And so those are a couple of the features you can assign to that button. You can assign other things to it as well. So that's pretty nice. On the back panel, we have fewer connections than we had on the Focusrite unit. We just simply have 4 outputs, 2 mains, and an auxiliary pair, which are independently controllable with the software application that comes with this device. And a USB connection, of course, to your computer, and a couple of microphone inputs. There's another input on the front panel for an instrument, and if you plug your instrument into that, that takes over the function of that channel and disables the microphone jack on the back side. This, of course, can record at 24-bit up to 96 kilohertz sample rate, so you can do really high fidelity recording. And the microphone preamps in this unit are really good preamps, studio class preamps that are highly regarded for being very good sounding and very clean, low noise. And it appears to me you get a little bit more gain out of this unit than you do from the other ones. And so, very nice. It works well. And like the Focusrite, you need to install software on your computer in order to communicate and work with this device. And that software, like the Focusrite, includes ASIO drivers for high performance connections between your computer and the interface. I find that the latency on the Audient interface is a little bit lower than it is on the other interfaces, but not by a huge margin, but lower is better. I've also had really good results with the Audient interface in that so far, knock wood, I have not had any sort of computer glitches with it where I've had to do a reset on the interface. It just works. Now, one thing that is a minor inconvenience, some people have complained about, I don't find it to be a big deal really, is that since this is a soft control, it doesn't have any position indicator on the knob, so you can't just at a glance tell what your output level is set to. And when this device is powered off and powered back up, it always comes up with the speaker and headphone outputs set to 0. And so the first thing you need to do after powering the unit on or booting up your computer is to select your output and turn it up. So a minor issue there. But I really like the Audient ID14 quite a bit. The biggest downside that I see with it is I wish there was an option to select the meters so that they would reflect what the input signal on the microphones is. It's not a big deal. You just have to watch the input levels on your recording software rather than on the device. But it's all metal construction. It feels solid. It feels like a professional quality device. It's a very nice interface. Does it sound better than the other interfaces? Well, some people would say it does, but I would say that the sound quality difference between all three of these devices is minimal at best, and especially minimal between the Focusrite and the Audient. That's a quick overview of the three interfaces. I think they're all really good products. Is this worth spending another $100 or so? Rock solid and reliable on the computer. So for that reason, I think it's a nice upgrade. The Audient interfaces are known for their really nice microphone preamps. And some people think that makes a big difference. We'll find out. I'm going to plug in each of these interfaces and do a short recording with a nice studio condenser microphone and let you hear the results so you can compare the sound of the three different interfaces and see if you can detect any significant difference. I think you'll find that they all sound pretty good. This recording was produced using the FineFine SC1 audio interface and a Neumann U87 studio condenser microphone. This is the sound of the Focusrite Scarlett 4i4 interface with the studio condenser microphone. Now you're listening to the Audient ID14 with the same studio condenser Neumann microphone. So what's my quick takeaway? Which one should you get? Well, that depends upon your particular needs. If you're just simply looking for an audio interface that will work well for most things, it's not super critical sound quality like training videos for a company, internal productions, YouTube videos, social media. I think the SC1 works just fine. It sounds good, it's not expensive, and it works well. And so that's a good choice for a lot of creators if you want to save a bit of money. With the money you save from the SC1, you could get yourself a nice microphone. And so I do recommend the SC1. I think it's a good product. One of the reasons why I don't lean in the direction of the SC1 is because it has unbalanced output, and in my system, I prefer balanced connections. It's also a lightweight plastic box, and I think the other interfaces just simply look nicer on my desktop. But this will certainly get the job done, and it will get it done for a pretty low price. It's good value. And as I mentioned earlier, another interface in this category that you might want to consider is the Behringer U-PHORIA series, which gets great reviews and doesn't cost a whole lot more than this unit here. If you are willing to spend a little bit more money, you can get into the Focusrite Scarlett series. And I think this is a very pretty looking box. It looks good on the desktop. This offers MIDI if that's important to you for connecting with your musical instruments. And it has more outputs, more inputs, and it does 24-bit recording at very high sample rates, so you can get really high quality recordings out of this box. And it's got some very good mic preamps in it. So if I was recording music that I was actually going to publish, I'd probably lean towards a device like the Focusrite that gives me a little higher edge in quality. And this also, I think, just looks like a real attractive box on the desktop. So for that reason, I might lean in the direction of the Focusrite Scarlett series. And finally, the ID14. I think this is a really nice interface. It's substantial, it's all metal, it feels a little heavy. It has really nice controls on it. I find it to be a pleasure to use. I really like the meters. And it's got great mic preamps in it that are considered studio class. And so for me, I think this is a great device, and it's worth the price bump above the Focusrite Scarlett. But in terms of actual performance and the recording quality, I'd say that it might be better, but probably not by a whole lot, than the Scarlett. And so I think you can do a great production with either unit. I don't think your audience would probably be able to tell the difference. But just because of the controls on this device, how nice it feels to operate, and the aesthetics, I like the look, I'd probably go for the Audient. But it is a pretty big price jump, so whether or not that's worth it to you, well, you have to decide that one. So that's a quick rundown of those three interfaces. I think they're all great products. I, of course, prefer the Audient. I really like the way it looks and feels and operates, and it's been completely reliable on my computer, which I certainly appreciate. The SC1, I think, is a compelling choice because of its value and its plug-and-play nature, that it just works, and it can also work with your compatible smartphone. So I hope that gives you something to think about if you're considering which audio interface might be right for you. Hey, thanks for tuning in, watching the video. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me for a little bit. I hope you decide to come back and watch more in the future. If you are considering that, you can subscribe to the channel. That'll make it easier to find next time. So thanks again. It was good talking to you, and I hope to catch you soon.